Welcome to Love Light with Dr. Jean Marie Farish. Today, we'll show you how to use the spirit of love and self-worth to improve the connections with everyone else in your life. This program is your weekly gift, and it will keep on giving. You'll see. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jean Marie Farish.
Greetings and a hearty welcome, everyone. I hope you're all faring well. I'm Dr. Jean Marie, your Love Light host, coming to you, shining love light into your hearts and homes to inspire, uplift, and empower you to create a life you love. Our show today, the Wisdom Path Project and Wisdom Leadership with Ian Haycroft, joining us today from Australia, will help us discover the wisdom within and how to apply it to our daily lives. Awakening to the wisdom within is awakening to our true potential and purpose to live peacefully and sustainable lives. When we lead with inner wisdom, we master ourselves and lead from the heart. Wisdom is not simply about knowledge, but leading with compassion, humility, service, and courage. John Maxwell quotes, "A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way." So how can insights from life challenges inspire and motivate us in meaningful ways? How can we come to understand what true leadership is all about? And how can we apply inner wisdom in our daily lives? And our outstanding guest today, Ian Haycroft, again joining us from Australia, is the founder of the ClearMindWay, a wisdom path explorer, mentor, kinesiologist, and business self-inquiry coach. He believes that conscious renewal can occur in every human endeavor. Ian works to support individuals, organizations, and communities to awaken to what most authentically expresses who they really are and what they want to achieve. So now I welcome Ian Haycroft on our show today, the Wisdom Path Project and Wisdom Leadership. Ian, welcome to Love Light.
Thanks, Jean. It's really good to be here. Nice to hear your voice.
Yes, thank you so much for this inspirational episode. We're grateful for you to be here today to awaken us to our essential wisdom and to show us how we can make a difference in our lives, in service, and to the planet at large. So, Ian, I'd like for you to just highlight what inspired you on your journey and your mission today.
I think, lots of people, inspiration for the journey usually comes from running into a few walls and falling flat on your face, right? So,
Truly.
I'm older now. So, as my kids say, "You're so old, Dad." So I'm old enough to look back these days. And so I think the inspiration came from discovering that all my grand plans for life were probably not going to work out. And so I had to confront who I really was. So that there's a long story in there. The short version is that I think through lots and lots of mistakes and lots of challenges, I came to experience that, there's an essential divinity within me, within every person. That is the most important thing. And the best laid plans of mice and men sometimes don't line up with what's actually happens in life.
Indeed. Now, I'd like for you to share a little bit about your journeys, because you've lived in the States and you worked in China. So can you kind of share with us about your journey and all those experiences that led you back to Australia?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Australia in a country, middle-class family in the country, and had all the gifts that comes with. And was married very early in my life and thought everything was set and all on track. And then that marriage fell apart, and so did what I perceived my life to be. So at age 23, I left Australia to go to India to discover my guru. And I was pretty certain that, just take me 2 or 3 months and I'd be a fully enlightened being and everything would be just wonderful. And I did have some wonderful experiences in India, but the trip was cut short by getting really, really sick. I got amoebic dysentery, and but rather than returning to Australia, because I felt like that would just be a failure, I went to London, was in hospital for a couple of weeks just to recover, and then started on a journey looking for spiritual communities. I lived in Wales for a while on a spiritual community. Then I went to the US and hitchhiked across America, stopping at different spiritual communities. And somewhere in amongst all that, I met my now wife, who is American, and lived and worked, and we created our family of six kids in America. Lived and worked there mostly in international relief work for 20 years. At the end of that, 1996, we moved to China because I had a new job as a general manager of a vegetable export company in Shanghai, in China. And again, there's all kinds of stories, but I think that back in 1996, China was just beginning to open to the West and to the Western economies. And a lot of American companies were going in to, try their hand. And it was really, really difficult environment. And so I stayed there for 3 years, but it was very, very challenging to have, as you can imagine, six small kids, six small blonde-haired, fair-skinned Aussie American children in the land of one child, dark-haired, dark-eyed children, right? So it was really challenging and difficult. And so then we decided that the best thing for us to do would be to return to what is my home, Australia. We felt that we could give our kids a quality of life in Australia that was difficult to find anywhere else. And so we did. We moved back to Australia, which was, 26 years ago now. And when we came back to Australia, I had one of those, and I'm sure your listeners have all had one or two or three or five of these moments in their life when they are struck by, what am I going to do when I grow up? This doesn't seem to be working. So I had one of those moments and really changed the direction of my life away from the kind of corporate world to a healing modality called kinesiology. And I had a clinic in Australia here where I treated people using that modality, which is really seeks to help heal people from the unconscious blocks that they have, often getting in the way of what they really want to achieve in their life. So, and did that. Along the way, our children grew and left home, and I helped start another business, which was a crowdfunding business, financial services business, and worked in that for 10 years. And then, as we were just saying before we got on air, Jean, that my wife finally said, "Can we please live in the country? I'm tired of these big cities." And so we moved to the country, and I now most of my work is from a isolated country place, but thanks to the internet, still can do a lot of communicating with people and work on projects like the Wisdom Path project that you introduced with today. So that's the short version. Does that help?
Yes, that is a fantastic journey, and it's amazing how all of our life experiences are significant and lead us just where we need to be to fulfill our destiny. And you have these musings where you have the walking on the dirt road and sharing wisdom and insights. Can you talk a little bit about that before we move forward?
Yeah. So when we moved to the country, I was, we've got a town that's 20 minutes away from us, which is about 100 people. So you can tell what kind of area we live in. It's a very, very rural area. So, everything happens on on the internet as far as the kind of my reaching out to the world. But when I did retire, I thought, well, I want to, let the world know a bit about what I do, but I've struggled for a long time with what I think are the distortions of Facebook and Instagram and much of the social media. And a friend of mine said, well, you should look at this platform called Substack because it's not like those others. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's all I need, yet another platform that I don't know how to use, right? But I did try it out, and I discovered that it was a platform where the algorithms didn't rule, but the humans did. And I began to write, and which is something I've done a little bit in my life, but I really found that I enjoyed it, and I started writing articles and even poems and publishing them weekly on Substack. And also along the way, starting to, we live on a dirt road. So I thought, well, some of the things I'd like to say, I can just do while I'm walking up the road. So I literally just took my phone and walk up the dirt road and, deal with what I think some of the important questions of life are, which, the essence of who we are, what is the nature of freedom, the kind of issues that many, many people throughout history have looked at, right? Who are we really? What is the nature of divinity? How do we overcome the obstacles we find in our life? All of those, what I think are central questions of, discovering what I sometimes call the wisdom within.
And your walks are very natural, spontaneous, and, with that your wisdom that you share with others. And this brings me to this question. What are your thoughts about the perceptions and of the state of humanity now? Your perceptions about that?
Gee, nothing like a small question, hey, Gee?
I know.
Well, I on many levels, we live at a time when we have so much abundance and so much wealth relative to history, right? If you look at human history, it's mostly the story of suffering. But, again, if we look at our world, there's incredible inequality of opportunity and resources, right? So some people are wealthy beyond any measure of any time in human history, and many, many are still suffering and living in poverty and have very few resources in their life, right? So, unfortunately, that's not new. So I don't think it's a newsflash that the world is full of incredible possibilities and lots of suffering. And I think our job, I think, is to find the inner resources that allow us to find a way to serve people, to help.
Yes, I love that. And, in our world, we have leaders, we have those who are leaders, we have those who are followers. And this brings me to, before we take a break, the idea of, what is true leadership? We know, just as you're indicating, the wealth, the resources, we know that there are a lot of people in leadership positions who are self-serving, and everything seems to be quid pro quo, transactional. And this, of course, not benefiting the masses or not prioritizing the needs of others or fostering growth and well-being, within the team or the organization or humanity. So before we kind of go on break, we just have a minute or two, and then we're going to continue after break. What's your concept of true leadership or wisdom leadership?
Yeah, I think, I love the writing of Simon Sinek, right, who writes a lot of things about business and other things, right? But the title of one of his books, or one of the key elements of one of his books is Leaders Eat Last, right? That the role of leadership is essentially service, right?
Yeah.
And and he'd be the first to say that, he's just encapsulating the words of most of the religious and ancient wisdom traditions of history, right? Which are real leadership is about sacrifice and service, and you just have to read pretty much anything that Jesus said, or the Buddha, or Lao Tzu, or pick a spiritual guide, leader. Essentially, they all, I think, would agree that the essence of leadership is service, not selfishness, right? So I think you're right that we, so many of the tragedies of history are at least encouraged by leadership that loses sight of the fact that each person is to be served, each person has divine essential value. And when we lose sight of that, then we lead people into chaos and suffering.
I love that. And we're going to take a brief break, but hold that thought, because I'm going to ask you a little bit more about servant leadership, the ideology, and, the failure in that, as you kind of talked about. We're not doing what, we're not, when we're looking at true leaders and models, Jesus, Buddha, all of the leaders that we're aware of in history, they all kind of set the same standard and the same tone in terms of their approach toward themselves and helping others, and really in service to mankind and service to the planet and service to humanity. So right now we're going to just take a brief commercial break. So listeners, stay tuned for more with Ian Haycroft, joining us today from Australia, founder of the ClearMindWay, wisdom path explorer, mentor, kinesiologist, and business inquiry coach. On our show today, the Wisdom Path Project and Wisdom Leadership. Stay tuned. We'll return shortly.
Announcing Dr. Jean Marie Farish's new book, Love Mastery Devotion Journal, 21-day weekly prompts and affirmations. This is the companion piece to Dr. Farish's best-selling book, Living in the Spirit of Love, Our Natural State of Being. Through the new book, we invite you to cultivate a lifestyle of love through daily devotional practices over a 21-day period, following 9 ingredients in the recipe of love. Love Mastery Devotion Journal, 21-day weekly prompts and affirmations is available on Amazon.com and Balboa Press.
Jean Marie Farish's Center for Conscious Loving, LLC, cultivates a lifestyle of love and wholehearted connections through personal growth, altruistic services, and speaking engagements. Resources include classes, workshops, life care coaching, and creative service projects with an emphasis on cultural arts. Visit the website at drjeanmariefarish-consciousloving.com. That's drjeanmariefarish-consciousloving.com, or click the link on the Love Light show page.
Best-selling authors international news honors best-selling authors around the globe. Dr. Jean Marie Farish is featured in the newly released issue of Published magazine. To have first access to this treasured resource, go to publishedmagazine.com. Vicki Winterton and Dr. Jean Marie Farish have compiled a dynamic book, We're All in This Together, Embrace One Another, an anthology with 24 highly diverse co-authors who share how to spread the message of love, resilience, inclusivity, and compassion. This book is an invaluable source of uplifting, inspiring, and positive insights for spreading positivity in the world. We're All in This Together, Embrace One Another is available on Amazon.com. Be sure to get your copy today. Follow Voice America at Facebook.com/Voice America for juicy updates from your favorite radio shows and podcasts.
You are tuned in to Love Light with Dr. Jean Marie Farish. Feel free to connect with our program through email or check out our links on Facebook. Reach Jean at Jean72Farish@yahoo.com. That's Jean72Farish@yahoo.com. And now, back to Love Light.
Welcome back. You've been listening to Love Light, Living in the Spirit of Love. Our show today is the Wisdom Path Project and Wisdom Leadership with our amazing guest, Ian Haycroft, founder of ClearMindWay, joining us today from Australia. He's a Wisdom Path explorer, mentor, kinesiologist, and business inquiry coach. On our show today, the Wisdom Project and Wisdom Leadership. And Ian, thank you so much for talking about leadership. And this brings me to the question about servant leadership. And can you talk about that ideology and the failure of this application?
Yeah, I think, again, I'd probably call it less an ideology and more a recognition of what is essential about humans, right? I think the essence of leadership is the capacity to understand what is the essence of what humans are, right? And obviously, I have a bias in the sense that I think each one of us has an essential wisdom within, which is based on our divinity. That is, we all arise from, and, depending on whatever word you want to use, we all arise from awareness, from consciousness, from God, whatever word works. But that is fundamental, right? And I think, if you look at of course, the Constitution of the US, right? That means that, all rights are a gift from God, not given by humans. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's the essential point. So if those in leadership don't really understand the essential nature of what humans are, they will always, and history shows that they will always make sometimes incredibly tragic mistakes in the way that they lead. So, for me, that's the core element of what is servant leadership. That is, if someone in a leadership position understands what is the essential nature of the humans they are leading, they will by nature serve them. And there's so many examples. Martin Luther King is, an incredible example of that. Gandhi, and I think there are leaders in the political world around the world who have also met that, what I would call that essential criteria of leadership, which is understanding the nature of those they serve. So, so that's, for me, that's the essence of it in relation to leadership.
It made me think about a quote. I think that Gandhi had: the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service. And I've always thought that to be a beautiful quote. What do you think are qualities and values needed for wisdom leadership?
Yeah, I think, when that quote you used from Gandhi, right? I think so often we read those and we go, oh, yeah, that's it's a great ideal, but, right? And we feel that, that's just too hard to do in the so-called real world, right? But I think I think the extent to which we give up on the idea that we are actually meant to lose ourselves and sacrifice a concept of who we think we are to a much higher cause, then that's the extent to which we have, chaos and suffering in the world. So, so what are the, essential qualities of leadership? I think they stem from that, which is a recognition of the nature of what human beings really are, which I think inevitably then leads to humility.
Yes.
Because, next to the unfathomable size, beauty, and extent of the universe, we would be silly to get arrogant about how important we are and how special we are, because we're mostly special because we have divine origins, and we are a reflection of and a expression of that divinity. But again, so many leaders, I think, move towards arrogance and how important they are, and that is the fundamental flaw. So I think humility, service, wisdom, in the sense that a connection with the divine origins of who we are essential elements of, what I would call wisdom leadership. Yeah,
indeed. And we're seeing a lot about humility and leadership. And even when we talk about losing yourself, for our listeners, it's like, well, what do you mean losing yourself? I think it's like from Gandhi's viewpoint, it's like you really discover more about yourself. And what you do is really lose a lot of those, qualities that are not good about yourself. You begin to discover more of your innate abilities and capacities, and you shed all of the egoic things. I think that's what perhaps Gandhi was indicating. What's your thought? Because losing yourself is really kind of finding yourself and discovering yourself, because we have to shed those faulty egoic beliefs. And we can do that in service to others. And what I find is that as you get more involved in serving others, you really learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah, no, indeed. And I think, I think one of the historically amazing things about the American democratic experience, right, and an experiment, is that the Constitution and the way that the system has been structured, and despite many, many faults, right? So no one's going to pretend that there haven't been faults, right? But there's a recognition that most of us fall short of this kind of divine image of egoless leadership. And so we actually need lots of checks and balances, so that despite our falling short of what we might call wise leadership or divinity, that we can still find a way to honor the essential equality and divinity of every person, right? And, I think we can see with some of the things going on at the moment, when you lose those checks and balances, then the egoic elements of leadership can become very powerful. And that's, where tragedies come from. And again, I know your listeners are well aware of history. History is full of those tragedies where we lost sight of what is the essential nature of each human.
And therefore we, you find leaders or people just every day get, really, what can I say? These blocks to unconscious blocks that manifest. And when we're tapping into the inner wisdom, we're learning, we're getting connected to the true essence of who we really are. So talk a little bit about that, because even though we have the leaders and, we talk about the qualities, essential qualities of leadership, but it begins with the person, the individual. And if I have a lot of unconscious blocks or entrenched in ego, how do I discern, or reflect on, do some reflection to engage in some type of self-awareness to really get back in touch with who I really am? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the essence of the kinesiology work I do, and kinesiology is not the only kind of modality or approach that understands this. The fact is, many of us, because of the experiences of our childhood and and often the dysfunction of even the best families, parents are not perfect, so we experience breakdowns in our life, or experience many things in our lives, and they are held in the unconscious. And a lot of the emotional blocks that people experience are those blocks in the unconscious that get in the way of us understanding or experiencing who we really are. So I, on a one-to-one level, I work with people to try and help them discover those unconscious blocks, the fears, the trauma that people experience in their lives, to help them recognize that those traumas, those fears, those issues that appear and arise from their unconscious ultimately don't define who they are, right? So I often say to my clients, we can keep looking for issues for 1,000 years. We're not going to come to the end because there's a lot of suffering and pain in everyone's life, right? So there's a point at which I think the journey of discovering unconscious blocks becomes a spiritual journey, in the sense of we need to discover not just what's wrong, but what's fundamentally right about people, right? And that what's fundamentally right is that we are an expression of divine love. That's who we fundamentally are. And if we take the time and the focus, we can experience that. And I'm hardly the first person to say that can change people's lives.
Mm-hmm. So when you have a kinesiology session, what can you kind of explain to our listeners? How do you detect those blocks, or when people come to you for help because obviously something's not going right, or they feel stuck? Yeah. What? Tell us a little bit about that to enlighten our listeners about you being a kinesiology practitioner.
Yeah, so let me just say to start, in America, when people think about kinesiology, they think about the movement of muscles and the relationship of muscles to movement, which is how it's seen in the States. Probably what I do in the States is called applied kinesiology, which really, and again, the short version of a long story is we use a muscle test, right? We ask the mind-body system using the musculature to show whether the system is in balance or not. And, the essence of it is that everything that we have experienced in our life on a physical, chemical, emotional, and energetic level is stored in our system, in the cells and the energy that gives life to those cells. So we use in my practice, we use a muscle test to help discover what are those key blocks held in the unconscious, which by definition you can't get to by consciously looking for them because they're in the unconscious. And again, kinesiology uses a muscle test, but, there are lots of wonderful modalities and lots of good therapists who help people come to terms with and eke out an understanding of what's going on unconsciously. And that discovery is really important to help people recognize some of the ways that they feel, react, and live in their lives are distorted by poorly filed unconscious files.
Yes.
And so it's important to discover those. But again, I think ultimately that is a pathway towards discovering that there is something much more fundamentally good and right about who we each are that transcends those limitations. Right? Yeah. And that's, for me, that's the focus of my work these days.
Wow, beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about the Wisdom Project. I'm really excited to hear a little bit about that. So we're going to talk more about that even after the break, but just, maybe lead us into what the Wisdom Project is really all about.
Yeah, so the name Wisdom Path Project, a few friends and I have been talking for years, right, about we have to do something. We have to do something concrete, right? Because if you look at the world, there are many, 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 many people in the world who are filled with spiritual wisdom. There are some, so it's actually not a scarce resource. There's lots of people who are deeply practice their own religious insight and their own practice, right? There are many who, if you look at the movement of mindfulness in the world, particularly in the West, there are millions, literally millions of people who recognize that there is a profoundly spiritual element to the nature of our existence, right? But I think one of the limitations is that it's very difficult for those people to get together and do something that impacts the world, right? They, my friends and I often say that enlightenment is a team sport, not an individual sport, right? Meaning, of course, individuals need to have and do have and can have their own awakening to what's important, right? But I think the part we aren't doing too well is finding a way for those people to actually gather together and cooperate to actually do concrete things in the world. So, and I know we'll talk more after the break. But
yes, I can't wait to hear about the different projects and how people come together. And I know you're having a global impact. So when we come back from break, we'll hear more about the Wisdom Path Project and how it impacts us globally with Ian Haycroft joining us today from Australia on our Love Light show. Ian is the founder of the ClearMindWay. He's a wisdom path explorer, mentor, kinesiologist, and business self-inquiry coach. And our show today is the Wisdom Path Project and Wisdom Leadership. Stay tuned. We'll return shortly.
Dr. Jean Marie Farish is proud to announce the release of her new book, Living in the Spirit of Love, Our Natural State of Being, available now at Balboa Press. This book will help you master your life and flourish in love. You'll learn how to become a better and more evolved you. Feel good by making life-affirming choices. Deepen your feelings and expressions of love. Tune in love and sustain the change. And flourish in love and find your joy. Visit BalboaPress.com and search for Living in the Spirit of Love and enjoy Dr. Farish's new book today.
I'm Judy Satori. I'm a spiritual channel and activator of human potential. You might have heard me speaking on Voice of America on Dr. Jean Farish's show, Love Light, because I've been speaking about the challenges that are besetting all of us right now and how we can surrender but also keep on going. I want to invite you to join my new Facebook group that is devoted to heart-centered connection and unity. Through this Facebook group, you can also join my free access question and answer session with Spirit on the first Wednesday to Thursday of every month. Just search Essential Community on Facebook to join the group. In this session, I answer questions and transmit energy from Spirit to give you guidance and support. Because life on planet Earth ain't easy right now. And there is so much help from above, from beings of love and light, from multidimensional realities who are actually here with us, wanting to step up and support us. I welcome you to become part of our ongoing group conversation about evolutionary change and how it's affecting us as human beings and affecting our life today. Many blessings to you. You can find out more about me and my work at www.ascensionlibrary.org. Have a wonderful day.
Announcing Dr. Jean Marie Farish's new book, Love Mastery Devotion Journal, 21-day weekly prompts and affirmations. This is the companion piece to Dr. Farish's best-selling book, Living in the Spirit of Love, Our Natural State of Being. Through the new book, we invite you to cultivate a lifestyle of love through daily devotional practices over a 21-day period, following 9 ingredients in the recipe of love. Love Mastery Devotion Journal, 21-day weekly prompts and affirmations is available on Amazon.com and Balboa Press. Best-selling Authors International news honors best-selling authors around the globe. Dr. Jean Marie Farish is featured in the newly released issue of Published Magazine. To have first access to this treasured resource, go to PublishedMagazine.com.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You are tuned in to Love Light with Dr. Jean Marie Farish. Feel free to connect with our program through email or check out our links on Facebook. Reach Jean at Jean72Farish@yahoo.com. That's Jean72Farish@yahoo.com. And now, back to Love Light.
Welcome back to Love Light, Living in the Spirit of Love. Today we are with Ian Haycroft, joining us from Australia, founder of the ClearMindWay, Wisdom Path Explorer, mentor, kinesiologist, and business self-inquiry coach on our show today, the Wisdom Path Project and Wisdom Leadership. So, Ian, in this segment, we really like to know more about the Wisdom Path Project and your role and how it impacts globally.
Yeah, sure, Jean. Look, essentially, my friends and I came up with the name the Wisdom Path Project, right? And I think the project part is the important part in this sense that, we're all on a wisdom path. It's not like something special that we designed. I think our evolutionary destination is for all of us to walk the wisdom path to discover who we really are. And we have the writings and examples of so many people in history to show that path is resilient, and through all the suffering, as Martin Luther King said, right, the arc of justice in history bends towards justice, right? Mm-hmm. The arc of history bends towards justice, right? So I think inevitably we are all walking that path towards discovering who we really are. And so we call it the Wisdom Path Project, just in the sense that we look at the world, and there, as I said before the break, there are so many people who understand this, and many of them way better than I do. But there does seem to be a breakdown in the sense of finding a way to really bring those so many people with that wisdom together to work together. We sometimes talk about the balance of stillness and movement, right? So there's a part of the spiritual life which is to pause and be still and become aware of who we are. That's the individual path, right? But the next step is to move, right? And we talk about we need to move from stillness, which is where lots of those people in the world are, to what we call movement, which is to connect with each other and to serve. So the Wisdom Path Project is really trying to foster the connect and serve part of that reality in the world. So on a practical level, we're just actually within the next month going to launch an online platform which will help be a platform where people from many, many parts of the world can begin to find ways to join together and to work together. We're starting off the process with a leadership platform. Now, of course, there's much more to changing the world than just a leadership platform, right? But step one for us is a leadership platform where we are inviting those people who are already coaches and teachers of people and teams to try out this platform as a place to take leadership to a new level, from just about the qualities of the individual leadership to working with teams. How do we build teams that really learn to trust, who actually apply wisdom to everyday business reality, right? Business and organizational reality. So it's about wisdom is not just for the cushion, it's for every part of life. So we're starting off with a platform which focuses on leadership. It will expand into retreats and places, online environments where people can, again, bring their students to work more on how they can work together with others. So it's really bringing the focus from individual enlightenment, awakening, to how can we actually work together with others who share that perspective on the importance of wisdom. And then as we develop it, in our last show, I talked a bit about the crowdfunding, Jean. And so an extension of that platform, which is already in place and exists already in parts of the world, which is there are platforms now where everyday people like you and me can find a way to invest in businesses that they believe or they feel are on a path to making a better world. And they can invest because now there's the opportunity in the way that the internet is and the way the world is to actually put small amounts of money and become owners of businesses, right? So, we're currently confronted by, a small number of billionaires who have incredible amount of power, but ultimately I think the economy is moving towards or can move towards platforms where everyday people can get behind those businesses and organizations that they believe are aligned with their values to act in the world, right? So, because I think often we feel, we get an impression that businesses, it's just selfish and, distorted. But actually there are, literally millions of small and growing businesses that are important and have incredible value foundations. And they're all looking for ways to grow and to find capital. Currently, the capital markets that we have in the world are fundamentally broken, where a few have access to a massive amount of capital. But I think the development of crowdfunding platforms across the world, and particularly I helped start one of those in Australia, will open the door to a different way of distributing capital to growing businesses. So the Wisdom Path project is really about moving the idea of awakening and wisdom from the individual to teams and ultimately to the institutions and businesses that we create. And so that's a big project. And my role, you asked me what's my role, is just to help start it. That's it. And our hope and our dream is that more and more people can join us and bring their wisdom to supporting teams and others to do good in the world. And that already exists. There's so many people doing so much good. What I think is lacking is a way for them to really discover that they can work together and build the capital to grow together and build a different kind of economy and ultimately have the say over the institutions and the politics of the world that we currently don't appear to have.
Beautiful, fantastic project. And Ian, one of the things that you mentioned is trust. People are, it's like, where can I go? Who can I go to? Who can I trust to really connect with? So we know in today's time, people are looking for community projects, trustworthy ventures, trustworthy outlets that they can use in their communities and expand outward. So your project, I can say, I know you've been, at this for a while, but it's quite timely now, because people are really looking for other ways to connect with people, like-minded people, so that they can connect and do good for their communities and the world at large.
No, absolutely. And trust is central, right? And so just to say a little bit more detail, part of the kind of platform in relation to leadership is exactly that, is to how do we work with teams so that they can actually learn to work in trust, right? Yeah. Because it just takes certain skills. I think there is not a human that I know who doesn't look for those they trust, right? But actually working with people and building trust is just a bunch of skills. my view is we innately hold that within us, right? But we need to train and have practice to learn how we can work in a team in a way where trust is a central engagement principle, not a side issue that you talk about over coffee. And so that's what we're working on our platform. And again, as it expands, we will become more and more able to measure trust. And in the age of the internet and blockchain technology, we will ultimately be able to measure trust and actually have tokens, blockchain tokens, trust tokens, so people, when they make an investment decision, will also be able to look for how trustworthy is this business, and we will develop measurements of trust. So currently, most people invest, they go, what's the bottom line? How much money is it going to make? Right? But actually, what many, many people want is, how good is this company? And of course, financial sustainability is important, but also, are they trustworthy? Do they treat each other and their customers and their clients in a trustworthy way? And over time, we'll begin to have measures for this that currently don't exist, but in the world of blockchain, we'll be able to develop trust coins. So these will become a way that people can actually invest in those companies that have proven themselves to be trustworthy.
I love that. As you were talking, I thought about a book when I was during my time in Malaysia there. I came across a book called The Good Company. And of course, in Malaysia, they were really concerned about helping others and using the businesses and the universities and the communities working together for the good of the community with clean water projects and, helping with food projects, dental projects, whatever. And, the good company, who's serving for the good of humanity, not just for profits, right? And so it looks like your company is really, the Wisdom Path Project will be a nice central place for people to connect with, right?
Absolutely. That's our hope, right? And again, it's based on the idea that there are already so many, A, good people, B, many, many wonderful organizations and businesses that serve the good. It's not like, it doesn't exist. It actually exists in spades, but often they are struggling to find the capital to put this into practice. So that's our goal. That's our hope. That's our dream, is to provide a platform that will help to hasten the coming together of that which already exists.
Perfect. So, Ian, how can our listeners connect with you to learn more, or maybe, get involved in your platform and know when you're going to, bring this into fruition?
Yep. So, to start with, they can connect with me. I think probably the easiest way these days is on Substack. So I think you're going to put some links in there, right, Jean? So,
okay. Well, if you share them, be sure I have them so that I could put the link there for the listeners to access on the episode.
I certainly will, right? So, and, my Substack site's called Living Your Wisdom, right? So, but also there's my ClearMind website that they can go to and connect with me. And within a month, we will have a Wisdom Path Project connecting point website address. We don't currently have that. We're just working on the wording and all that stuff at the moment. But and then that will be a connection to, not beyond me, but to that whole project. So as soon as I have that, I'll share that with you too, Jean. But in the meantime, people can connect with me directly, and then I can guide them towards the Wisdom Path Project activities as well.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. This is just so wonderful, and I know our listeners are thrilled. We really appreciate you being here today for your wisdom and inspiration, making us more aware of what leadership is really about and new projects that can help people worldwide connect and serve for the greater good. So thank you so much for being here today. And we invite our listeners to tune back in, share our show with others, and connect with Ian to learn more. So thank you so much, Ian, for being here. And for our listeners, again, listen back, share our show with others, connect with Ian to learn more. I'm Dr. Jean Marie, your Love Light host. And until we meet again, remember, an empowered self is a loving self. And keep your love light shining. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to Love Light this week. Be sure to join Dr. Jean Marie Farish again for another program next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and noon Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Have a wonderful week filled with love, self-worth, and better connections.